This is the Simpit. I'm your host, Shaun, and today we're here for part 2 on my segment on shifting aids for iRacing. And this is part 2 because of a couple of mistakes that were made in the first episode, as well as some things that I've learned since doing that show. Now, this is all part of my series of what am I doing wrong, or what can we do to be faster on track. Always looking at our racing efforts, looking for mistakes, looking for anything that we can do to improve our skills. Now this video, or the first video, actually came based on comments from the community. Some people are outraged the way I leave it at full throttle when I do my auto blip shifts, spike that engine, make an obnoxious sound, just didn't look very pro. Others were just claiming that I could be faster if I got rid of the driving aids altogether, and that's what led to that last episode on shifting aids, where I tried all 4 different methods within iRacing and then gave you the lap times accordingly. However, I did make a mistake in that video. That mistake was pointed out by John Stevens, and he commented on the correct differences between auto clutch and auto blip. So let's talk about the differences between those 2 driving styles and what really is going on in the sim. Auto clutch allows you to change the gears without using the clutch. When you click your shifter, the sim will manually press in the clutch at the moment of gear change. It does not do anything whatsoever to the throttle pedal. However, auto blip is actually 2 shifting aids simultaneously. When you press the shifter, the sim will engage the clutch, shift the gear, and blip the throttle to match the engine to the drivetrain speeds. This prevents any wheel hop. In my testing, I was faster with auto blip. However, I shouldn't have been. When I was using auto clutch, I was actually driving the car improperly and getting some ill effects. When using auto clutch, I was not doing anything to the throttle pedal. The sim was pushing in the clutch, changing the gear, but no engine rev matching was going on whatsoever. It requires me to manually blip the throttle when using auto clutch. This is going to keep the drivetrain and the engine speeds matched and prevent wheel hop. Any wheel hop, any skipping of those rear tires or the driveline tires is going to cause you to get a little bit of push, and it's going to affect your braking and your entry into the corners. So to be perfectly clear, the shifting aids are actually in the order of difficulty and the potential for the maximum speed, with the slowest but easiest to drive being auto shifting. From there, we do move on to auto blip, followed by auto clutch, and then finally the fastest but the hardest to drive being no driving aids at all. One other small correction I'd like to make from that first shifting aid video is when I talked about race starts. Whether you're using auto clutch or auto blip, either method, you can leave the car in neutral, rev the engine up, and pop it into gear to get going. Now for me, I'm still going to use the clutch at that moment because I find I can control my wheel spin a lot better and get better launches. But again, either one, you can just pop it into gear and that's not going to be a problem. Now this leads me to my next topic, which is, and I said this during that first show, it really comes down to what driving method you are most comfortable with. I'm not going to sit here and get on my high horse and tell you that you have to drive no shifting aids and this is the only way to win races. It is not the only way to win races. You have to drive with what makes you fastest or whatever you're most comfortable with. Now me, I talked about being a master of my craft, wanting to really get the fastest combination possible and get that under my belt and be able to do it. But I have to tell you, it's been going really rough. I have been having a ton of missed shifts trying to switch over to no shifting aids at all. And to be honest with you, I am not going to implement it into my racing until I've nearly perfected the skill. And at this point, it is not race ready. I'm going to have to keep practicing, and I'll be running auto clutch from now on during the races and rev matching to match. Now that leads me to one other note that I got. It was actually a message from Clayton McLeod that explained to me some of the mistakes I was making while trying to do that blip downshifting. And he talked about the amount of time that my hand was actually engaging the shifter. So I was clicking super fast, like a button press speed almost. And this was a result of using auto clutch, auto blip, anything that will let me get away with murder when it comes to my timing. Well, when doing no driving aids at all, the timing is so critical. You really have to nail that clutch timing if it's the upshift or that blip timing if it's the downshift. But he also recommended that I actually hold the shifter paddle in longer. This will allow the game or the sim to actually see that shift, change the gear, and once the gear is fully engaged, release the shifter paddle. However, it's not as easy as it sounds. I tried this method and I immediately decreased my miss shifts by half, but it was still hard. It's one of those things, I don't know if you ever try to roll your hand on your stomach and tap your head, but sometimes you get confused and backward. It's one of those things. How do you relearn motor skills that you've been doing for so long and doing it wrong? And as I have been trying to perfect my shifting without using any driving aids and clutching and blipping or whatever method, I've also been trying heel and toe downshifting. Now this method, using the clutch properly, braking with my right foot instead of left foot, has actually allowed me to really get it to the point where I am not making any misshifts at all. However, on the downside, I'm now switching from left foot braking after all these years to right foot braking, and I am seeing a big difference in my braking ability and my turn-in point. So I'm not getting the benefits of the speed, I'm just getting the corrected shifts. So again, you're going to see this is going to take a little more time for me to get the timing of the shifts down and be able to implement it into the races like I talked about. Now, one other comment that I did see in the comments for that video was somebody questioned the temperature. How did I control the temperature during my test sessions in order to make sure that that was not a factor? All of those sessions were run during a testing session with fixed weather, just to make sure that all of the weather conditions were exact. In fact, I was only doing 5 or 6 laps at a time and then resetting everything just to make sure the track condition was the same build-up, same clean slate every time that I did the testing. That allowed me to really see that the timing was very correct. And as a result of that question, my next topic on what am I doing wrong or what can we do better will probably be in regards to temperature and looking at the effects of a cold track versus a hot track or a worn out versus a brand new clean slate track. Looking at the time differential. I hear from people who get frustrated thinking, I'm so far off my pace, but did you ever think it might just be the weather? But we're going to dig into that deeper and see the actual time differences on the track between the different weather conditions while we race. So I'd like to thank everybody out there who commented on that first shifting video. There were some great comments in there, and I'd especially like to thank John Stevens for the perfect correction to my mistake. I couldn't have said it better myself. I'd like to also thank Clayton McLeod for the great advice or tip on how to shift better with no driving aids. And most of all, I want to apologize to all of you out there for my mistakes. It is so important to me. I take great pride in quality of workmanship. It is important that the Simpit relay the perfect information to you out there, and I'll always do my best to correct any mistakes if they go on. So I hope this has helped you. A second episode on shifting aids and what can be faster or better for you. I hope this clarifies anything that I got wrong in that first one. And I'm not going to rule out that we might have a third episode on this topic once I really master the no shifting aids and get that down, and I can tell you how it's working out for me. Now, if you have any ideas for a show like this, what am I doing wrong? What can I do fast? What can I do to be faster? If you have any suggestions, if there's anything I can help you with, please email me at Shaun@thesimpit.com, and I'll do my best to create a show just so we can help out others as well. This is The Simpit. I'm Shaun Cole, and I'll see you on the track.